And hello and welcome. Today we're going to do a very short little video to clear up a little misconception that some people have regarding simple electric circuits. In reality, you're going to learn virtually nothing from this video, and we're going to end up back exactly where we started. So let's do it. Now, up to now you have been taught that an electric current always flows through a circuit from the positive terminal of a battery towards the negative terminal of a battery. Electric current comes out of the positive terminal around the circuit back towards the negative terminal of the battery. That is what we are taught about electric current. That is its direction. But the question I'm going to pose to you is this correct? Is this accurate? Is this really what is happening? Another way of framing that question is there a difference between the direction the electrons flow and the direction that the electric current flows? Now, on the face of it, this seems like a very unusual question, since we already have defined an electric current as a flow of charge, and usually the charge that's flowing is electrons. So if an electric current is a flow of electrons, the electrons leave one terminal of the battery, move around the circuit. Isn't that the direction of electric current? Well, only if it was that simple, because there is a little historic issue. And the historic issue comes down to one particular character, and that guy is Benjamin Franklin. Now, Benjamin Franklin lived a very interesting life, a very interesting character. Not only was he one of the founding fathers of the United States, wrote their Declaration of Independence, very likely contributed to their Constitution. He was also a leading writer, printer, philosopher, politician, Freemason, postmaster, scientist, inventor, humorist, civic activist, statesman, and diplomat. History does not record what he did in his spare time. As a scientist, he is often remembered for his discoveries and theories regarding electricity. He invented the lightning rod, he invented bifocal glasses, he developed several types of batteries, and he developed something known as the Franklin stove. American school kids will often be taught that he discovered electricity. What he did in reality was a little bit more subtle. He proved by a reasonably dangerous experiment which involved flying a kite during lightning storms that lightning was actually a type of electricity, had the same nature as electricity, in essence was electricity. So, what is the problem with electric current? Well, it goes way back to 1750 when Franklin was in his prime. And this was before we knew that electricity and electric current was associated with the subatomic particle called the electron. The electron was not discovered for 150 years later. Franklin, working on electricity at the time, chose a convention regarding the direction of current flow. What that means in simple English is Franklin assumed that positive charge carriers were leaving the positive terminal of the battery, flowing around the circuit and coming back at the negative terminal of the battery. In other words, he took a guess that current was something leaving the positive of the batteries, moving around the circuit towards the negative. 150 years later or so, J.J. Thomson discovered the subatomic particle known as the electron. In fact, that's one of the few very useful things that you need to learn from this video. So we now know that Franklin's original assumption or guess regarding electric current was actually incorrect. We now know that in metals, the charge is carried by the charge carrier known as the electrons. Now, that actually is the second thing that you could actually get out of this video, that in metals, the charge carriers are electrons. We know the electron has a negative charge, and electric current in a metal is now known to be due to the flow of electrons from the negative of the battery around the circuit to the positive terminal. So in reality, electric current is a flow of electrons, mostly, going from negative to positive. But Franklin, 150 years before, guessed that it was the other way, and he guessed incorrect. So where does that leave us? So Franklin assumed that electric current was a flow of charge around the circuit, leaving the positive, going through the circuit and back to the negative. Later, J.J. Thomson, 150 years later, discovered the electron, and we now know that electric current is due to electrons flowing from the negative around the circuit towards the positive. And the problem is that in the intervening years between Franklin and the discovery of the electron and the association of electricity with the electron, that a whole host of rules and laws about electricity had been built up. And if we reversed the direction of electric current, then all these laws would have to be modified and changed. And the scientists at the time said, nah, we're not going there. That is just too much trouble. So we have to maintain a little bit of fiction in this. In reality, we know the physical reality is electrons moving from the negative around the circuit towards the positive, but we still maintain the fiction that electric current goes from positive around the circuit towards the negative for the sake of all those rules that would have to be modified otherwise. Confused? Well, you shouldn't be, because it's very, very simple. We now accept the following. Current, which is often known as conventional current, flows from positive to negative. Where in the back of our head, we remember electrons go from negative to positive. So, we always consider that the current flows through a circuit from positive to negative. While at the back of our heads, we must remember that the reality is electrons are flowing in the opposite direction from negative to positive. If we maintain this convention, current flowing from positive to negative through a circuit, that will in no way really cause us any problems. And in calculations, everything will still come out right. And all the rules built up in those 150 years will be maintained and still work. So, all we've got to remember is in electric current will flow through a circuit from the positive of a battery around the circuit to the negative of a battery, and let's be honest, that's where we came in the first place. Thank you. Goodbye.